Holy City Center Radio, episode 88. I am your host, Christian Sanger, and today is Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. Hope you all are having a great week. Happy hump day. We're on the getting towards the end of the week, and I hope everything is going well in your world. Before we jump into the news, real quick, just a reminder that Best of Charleston final voting is underway in the Charleston City Papers 2023 awards. Holy City Center is lucky enough to be up for 4 awards this year. So if you can go to bestof.charlestoncitypaper.com and vote for Holy City Center in the following categories, I would really appreciate it. Best local Twitter, best local website, best local Instagram, and best local social media influencer. Voting is open through March 8th, so I really appreciate it if you could go in there and do that. And thank you so much for everyone who's already has done that and who nominated Holy City Center as well. I really appreciate it. All right, quick life update. My parents are here in Charleston, as I mentioned in the last episode, and we're having a great time. When I'm all done working for the day, we've been able to do some fun things. I mentioned the last episode, going out to eat and things like that, and that's continued. Unfortunately, while I was hard at work, they were relaxing on the beach with this beautiful weather we had on Tuesday. But hey, they deserve it. Retired and enjoying their vacation down here during their visit, but afterwards, and I had to run some errands and whatnot, but afterwards we were able to grab some dinner again. In a couple evenings. First, we went to Hugh Babies. That's HUGH hyphen babies with an apostrophe S. This is that new restaurant in West Ashley. I think it's where the Pizza Hut used to be by the Taco Bell on what is that, St. Andrews Boulevard. This is owned by the folks behind Martin's Barbecue on James Island. Pitmaster Pat Martin created these in Tennessee, just like the barbecue joint. And this is more of a hamburger, hot dog, milkshake kind of place, kind of has an old school feel to it in some capacity. And yeah, it was pretty good. Some food that you can get at Hugh Babies, you can also get over at Martin's Barbecue. So, for instance, they have a pulled pork sandwich at both locations. So if you've had that at the barbecue spot, you'll know you'll like this one. It's the same thing. But there are some different menu items. Like I mentioned, there's a couple of different types of hamburgers, including a vegetarian option. They have a few different varieties of hot dogs, a few different shakes. They also have like a fried chicken sandwich and a few other items. So we went there, and no surprise, since we like Martin's Barbecue so much, we all enjoyed what we got there. I went with the double patty hamburger cheeseburger, and it was very, very good. I was very happy. It's like a smash burger style. It was very tasty. I enjoyed it. Got some fries with it. Their fries are very reminiscent of McDonald's. Both myself and my mom made that comment. The look and almost the taste a little bit, very reminiscent of those classic McDonald's fries. So yeah, I was very happy. I got a chocolate shake as well, which was good. But for me, highlight was definitely the burger and fries. So yeah, definitely recommend checking it out. Again, if you aren't eating meat, they do have a vegetarian option. If you're not a hamburger person, like I mentioned, they have fried chicken, hot dogs, and a few other items as well. Like I said, the pulled pork sandwich is on there. And yeah, we really enjoyed it. They are pretty new and they were a little busy, but we got our food pretty quickly. It wasn't too bad of a wait, and we were there around like a pretty busy dinner time. So yeah, very happy and definitely enjoyed it. And then our next dinner was at El Pollo Guapo, which is on James Island and the former home of Black Magic Cafe. Definitely was sad to see that restaurant go, but I'm happy with this new one. It's actually a restaurant that's based in Connecticut, and I've had it before. I've mentioned it on the podcast, but this is my parents' first time going there. This time around, I ended up actually getting just like a regular piece of the rotisserie chicken. The first time I got a bowl, so the rotisserie chicken was kind of mixed in with things. I really liked it. There's like rice and pickled onions and pico de gallo and plantains and some other things that were in it. But I was like, this time I just want to get the rotisserie chicken on its own since that's like their thing. And so I did that with some sides. And yeah, once again, very happy. Enjoyed the meal. Prices aren't too bad. And they have like a variety of dressings or dips, whatever you want to call it, that you can get with the chicken if you want to. It was actually pretty good without any of it, but I did get this like sriracha aioli, which was not too spicy, but was very tasty. And yeah, it was very good. My parents each got a bowl. They like their options as well. I think after my two visits, not disappointed with the meal I got today, but I did like the bowl a little bit better. Just felt like I kind of like that whole everything mixed together, a bunch of different flavors in one. Um, just a personal preference thing. But yeah, if you want to get just like you can get like a quarter of the rotisserie chicken or a half if you're feeling very hungry or want to share. And it is very, very good. But for me so far, getting one of the options they have, like the rice bowl options, is probably my top recommendation at this point. Definitely want to go back because they also have like tacos. They have like a chicken empanada, quesadilla, nachos, all sorts of stuff. So definitely planning on going back. But very happy with both El Pollo Guapo and Hugh Babies. So yeah, definitely check them out. And if you do, let me know what you thought and what you ended up getting. Maybe there's something on the menu I need to get next time I go. All right, and with that, we will get into the latest news. After having Monday off for President's Day, the Murdaugh murder trial was back underway, and then now it's the defense's turn after the prosecution rested their case on Friday. So there's a couple highlights today. The one that I think a lot of people were very, very interested in, although I don't think anything too groundbreaking came out of the testimony. But Alec Murdaugh's surviving son, Buster, actually took the stand to testify on Tuesday, and he had a couple things that were helpful to the defense, but overall, I don't think, like I said, I don't think it was anything too groundbreaking or shocking. But here's some of the things that he said. Um, he mentioned that he was unaware of the severity of his father's drug and financial issues. So we talked in the last podcast about how Paul was kind of nicknamed the little detective because he had found pills anytime Alec, had some prescription medication hidden somewhere. Paul was the one who would find it or what have you. So he was very much aware of what was going on with his father. Seems Buster was a little bit more in the dark for whatever reason with those things. And just like I'm sure many other people outside of the immediate family, he wasn't aware of all the financial issues either until it all came out in the news. One thing that I thought was interesting in his testimony was that after the murders, Buster said that he did not want security detail of any kind. He didn't want to carry a gun or anything like that either because he said he felt secure where he was staying at the time. That could be the case. Also, some people are saying, huh, your mother and son were murdered and their your father is saying, he doesn't know who did it. He thinks it was someone that was mad about the boat accident involving Paul. Why wouldn't you want security detail? Granted, he's not the one that was on the boat, but if this supposed person was going after Paul and just for whatever reason didn't wait until Paul was alone and just randomly killed Maggie as well, wouldn't you be a little afraid that those people might be a little, not someone you could trust will be satisfied with just taking Paul out? So I thought that was kind of interesting, and other people thought the same. Why wasn't he worried about it? Whether he thinks his father did it or not, wouldn't you be a little concerned? So, but for whatever reason, he just said he felt secure, and that was his reason for not wanting any extra security detail and didn't want to carry any kind of weapon. Outside of that, something that helped the defense a little bit. He stated that his dad had stayed with him for several days after the murders, and he said he does not remember his father disappearing for any amount of time, which contests what the state has been saying. Their theory that Alec had time to maybe stash some weapons or hide anything else that may have been at the crime scene. So him saying he doesn't remember his dad really disappearing for any large amount of time, that helps. Now, it doesn't mean he was by his dad's side at all times, of course. So obviously there still could be that opportunity. And he's already testified he didn't know about his father's financial issues or drug issues. So it's not like he's exactly, knows everything that goes on in his father's life. So it'd be easy for his father to hide things. But nonetheless, it's not like he gave some damning testimony like, yeah, my dad disappeared for an hour and 2 hours, whatever it was, and wouldn't tell me anything. So it doesn't hurt the defense that he testified that. Let's put it that way. Another thing, actually, that Buster mentioned, which I think helps a little bit as well. You may remember the video interview with Alec, where it sounded like he may have said in reference to Paul dying. Some people thought he said, "I did him so bad," or "I did them so bad." And a lot of people, did he just sort of confess during this interview? But others contested that he said they did them so bad. Meaning the killers did Maggie and Paul so bad by killing them and doing so brutally. So if you remember that, someone asked Buster, this is your dad. What did it sound like he was saying? His voice, how he says things. What did it sound like to you? And he said it definitely sounded like his dad said they did them so bad. And he also mentioned that was not the first time that his father has said that phrase. So he also heard his father say they did them so bad in other occasions outside of this police interview. So that certainly helped out as well. If there was any doubt from people on the jury, perhaps by hearing his own son say, no, I know how my dad speaks and I can tell what he's saying. And that's what he actually said. I think that may help out as well. Other than that, the defense also had their own crime scene engineer. His name was Mike Sutton. He came up to give some testimony, and the whole point of having him on the stand was to try to refute some of what the SLED agents had testified about. Sutton said that based on his own research and work, he didn't believe that Alec could be the shooter for one main reason. And that one main reason is that Alec Murdaugh is too tall to be the shooter. So why does he think that? Sutton told the jury that whoever fired the shots was probably 5'2" to 5'4". Meanwhile, Alec is 6'4". So in his estimation, based on his research, whoever fired these shots must have been shorter than Alec, rather, at 5'2" to 5'4", whereas Alec is much taller, almost a full foot taller or more, depending on what end of the spectrum we're on there. So, all right, interesting that was kind of their main point to refute that it couldn't be Alec. The state, of course, questioned Sutton's expertise and credentials, and it seems it was probably the right thing to do because during cross-examination, Sutton acknowledged he did not have formal pathology training, did not have formal firearm training, or really had any inkling of how well they, how they work to any extent. And he was not a member of any foundation that works to test firearms or pathology. So basically, they call the guy who has no formal experience when it comes to crime scene investigations in this capacity whatsoever. So we'll see if the jury thinks that matters or if they believe this theory that whoever the killer or killers are on the shorter side, and Alec couldn't possibly be the killer. So we'll see. We'll see what they think of that. As usual, if anything big happened towards the end of the trial, I might have missed it due to recording, and I'll be sure to update you all on Friday. Well, we have our first lawsuit against a school district regarding what they are teaching in schools. A lawsuit alleges that Charleston County School District is currently teaching the dreaded critical race theory. Bum, bum, bum. A group of South Carolina House Republican lawmakers filed a lawsuit back in November. Not sure why it's just coming to light now, but CCSD has been partnering with this nonprofit, EL Education. The South Carolina Freedom Caucus said that this nonprofit has aspects of critical race theory in their curriculum. Meanwhile, CCSD has since filed a motion for dismissal of the lawsuit. Courtney Waters, who is a CCSD school board member, told ABC News 4, quote, critical race theory is not being taught in schools at any level, end quote. You know what? She is right. Granted, I'm not in every single classroom in every single school, but for the billionth time, critical race theory is a graduate level theory course that is predominantly taught in law school. Graduate level theory courses are not being taught in high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, preschools, none of it. Now, with that said, I am well aware, just like other terms like woke, the term has lost all meaning because certain group of people are operating under the actual definitions and others are using it as like an umbrella term, and that's exactly what's happening here. I mean, one of the people involved in the lawsuit even said as much, which I'll get to here in a second. So these Republican lawmakers say that the curriculum from this group that CCSD is working with teaches what's called anti-racism. It means you're someone who's against racism. And they say that falls under the critical race theory umbrella. Okay. I mean, yeah, I'm sure in critical race theory graduate level college courses, perhaps they discuss anti-racism. That doesn't mean that anti-racism is part of critical race theory. However, that's what these Republican lawmakers believe. Again, anti-racism just means that you're against racism, it means that not only do you not say anything overtly racist, it means someone who's anti-racist also works to enlighten others about maybe tropes or stereotypes, to say, hey, this can do harm. Um, and it goes on from there. People who are anti-racist can also do extensive work in research, and um, it could eventually, possibly, wade into a critical race theory topic. Again, that's a college level course. Telling students about anti-racism is not critical race theory, nor should anybody be upset about it. Who's mad that their kids are being taught not to be a racist? You know, and there's no talk about you should feel guilty if you're white, or you should feel this way. It's just saying like, hey, racism's bad. That's the extent of it. But again, terms and definitions and phrases have lost meaning. Things become a boogeyman monster, and anything that people don't like, they'll just say is CRT, or they'll just say is this, that, or the other, and it really isn't. And this clearly is one of those cases based on reporting. If anything comes to light showing that some teacher was actually trying to teach this graduate level theory course, then okay, I'll change my tune. But that's not what's happening here. CCSD provided the following statement. They said, quote, none of the plaintiffs are residents of Charleston County, nor do they have any children in CCSD. CCSD believes they do not have the legal right to bring forward this lawsuit, and their curriculum is in line with the Department of Education requirements, end quote. So that's where we're at with that. Once again, I don't know how many times I have to say it. CRT is not being taught in CCSD schools. Easy. End of story. Moving on. There is a bill that would make local bans on short-term rentals illegal in South Carolina. So there's a growing number of cities and counties around South Carolina. You've probably heard of other states that are doing it too, where they're setting regulations around short-term rentals, or even outright banning them. And many local ordinance and laws have already been passed, and some places in South Carolina may even want to do that. But this bill that was introduced this year at the State House would make imposing these bans illegal, and places that do it could be out millions of dollars. So the bill would prohibit local governments from enacting local laws that would ban renting a residence, and that could mean anything from an entire house to just even an individual bed for less than 29 days. So short-term rentals obviously allow people to visit and stay in places that maybe they otherwise couldn't. Maybe the hotels in the area are sold out. Maybe there's no nearby hotels where they want to stay, or maybe they're vastly cheaper than a hotel stay. These are things like Airbnb. You're all probably very familiar with these things. And these things can help bring in some extra revenue. And so the proponents of, and by the way, the bill is H3253 if you're interested in writing to any of your local representatives about this. People who are against this ban, meaning they don't want the state to be able to ban local governments from making it illegal to have these short-term rentals. They are citing a study from University of South Carolina research economist Joseph von Nessen. He has done a study on short-term rentals, and this was being cited by people who are against the ban, saying that his study found that these rentals, which again include things like Airbnb, have found to have a $4.2 billion impact on South Carolina's economy each year, which generates nearly $2 billion in revenue for property owners annually. This is a big amount of money that would be lost if these short-term rentals, if local governments were not allowed to have these short-term rentals. Last week, Folly Beach residents voted to cap the number of short-term rentals allowed at 800. And in Charleston, owners must follow strict rules, including having to obtain a business license and having to live at the residence for at least half the year. Now, of course, I'm sure you all know people who are skirting these rules, but there are rules in place like this. But under this bill that's being proposed, cities and counties that impose short-term rental bans would face penalties, including not being able to collect a 6% commercial property tax, which is currently levied on short-term rentals. Instead, those property owners would be charged a lower 4% rate reserved for primary residents. They would also be barred from receiving money from the state's local government fund, from which annual allocations can range from hundreds of dollars to millions based on population. All right, now the next two pieces have to do with some more legislation and the removing of requirements. South Carolinians who work in fields such as audiology, maybe they are dietitians, they are a funeral home director, psychologist, or even a teacher, would no longer have to obtain a state license under a proposal in the state house. That's right. There is a list of professions that a proposed bill would eliminate the need to get any kind of licensing requirement for people who work in those fields. Some other jobs that this would include: family therapists, embalmers, geologists, hair braiders, landscape architects, marriage therapists, professional counselors, social workers, speech pathologists. The list goes on. There's a handful that you can look up online. This is Bill H 3515. It would also eliminate the need for licenses for professionals regulated by the State Athletic Commission as well. State Representative Jordan Pace, who is a Republican out of Berkeley, has said he is sponsoring this bill. He is a member of the House Freedom Caucus, which we talked about a moment ago, the group that's suing CCSD for supposedly teaching critical race theory concepts. He basically says that him and his caucus, they want to limit the scope of state government, and that's the reason that they're trying to pass this legislation. Pace says he views license requirements as barriers into getting into the workforce, and it restricts the opportunity for those people to be able to find work. He says he would rather that we allow the free market to decide who is best. He said it's not his intention to eliminate the license altogether, and he would keep them in place if people want the certification for insurance purposes, or if you're going to practice in other states that do require you have a certain license. Um, Pace has yet to have a hearing for this bill, but he might not have support from State Representative Bill Sandifer, who's a Republican, who chairs the Labor, Commerce, and Industry Committee, which is where the bill is being assigned. So someone from his own party might not even be supporting this. He has called Pace's bill dangerous. He said, quote, "I don't even know what he's trying to accomplish. I've got no idea. This thing is so far reaching that it's insane," end quote. Sandifer, by the way, is a retired funeral home director and embalmer, so he's aware of what not having these licenses could do in the field he worked in. So, yeah, I mean, technically, you free market could decide like, hey, this person doesn't have the license, this person does. I'm going to go with this person, but some people might not have a choice, or they might not look that much into it, might not realize a law changed, and you're going to have people who don't have any official licensing to perform some pretty important work, especially when you're talking about psychologists and therapists, funeral home directors and embalmers who are working with chemicals and things like that. Um, wouldn't you want these types of people to have the appropriate training? Audiologists is another one. Psychologists who prescribe medication. Yeah, you probably want them to have licenses. Um, Again, I get the whole free market thing, and people can choose if they want to go someone who doesn't have a license. That's their call. But what if someone, again, is just not aware of how this process works? Just seems, just like Representative Sandifer said, seems really dangerous, and honestly, this seems really unnecessary. All right. The last story for today involves the constitutional carry gun bill that we talked about in the last episode. There's a group who wants to pass the so-called constitutional carry bill, which basically means, just like in the last story, people wouldn't need any formal training or license to carry a gun, but more specifically, the training aspect of it. They wouldn't need a permit. The bill is expected to pass the House this week. Actually, is a little bit worse than we all thought it was. I already thought it was bad enough on the surface, but the Post and Courier put out an editorial where they actually looked at the entire bill and pointed out it's even worse than you think it is. Here are some bullet points for why this is even worse than we thought. This would allow some first offense gun violations to be expunged from criminal records, which could mean a second offense violation of those and other laws will carry a lighter sentence. It also reduces the penalty for carrying a gun into a business that may have like a no concealable weapon sign on the door. Now, that penalty is even less if someone does that. Currently, people face a penalty of up to a year in prison, just like a person who was to carry a gun into a school, a courthouse, a church, or other place where they're banned by law. The bill says people who violate the law in private businesses can only be charged with a trespass-like crime that carries a maximum penalty of 30 days in jail. It would also eliminate even that minor penalty for people who carry guns into bars and restaurants that prohibit them. In addition, it would allow school boards to override the no guns law on school campuses and allows county and city councils to allow guns in their meetings and possibly even inside courtrooms. And daycare operators could allow them in their facilities if they choose to. It's not over. It would also eliminate the requirement for people who are carrying guns illegally to inform police of that during a traffic stop. So if you are carrying a gun legally, you would no longer have to tell the police when you're pulled over. Again, just like we were talking about, back the blue, right? All these people talking about support the police. We can't defund them. Back the blue. We support the police. Police have repeatedly over the years have been against this type of legislation, which is why it hasn't passed. For the most part, that's why it hasn't passed here in the state. But they're trying to push it through again, and they're making it even worse. Now you're putting police in even more danger because someone who has a gun, yeah, it may have it legally, no longer has to inform the police, meaning that they don't know that they could potentially be in danger, and the person they pulled over has a deadly weapon on them that could be pulled out at any time. I don't get it. How does a group of people who always talks about supporting the police and doing right by them continually try to pass something the police are against, and also making their job more dangerous and more difficult and allowing more guns to be out there in a community, not just a community, but in a country where we have a violence problem, period, especially a gun violence problem? Makes no sense to me whatsoever. All right, that'll do it. This episode coming out a little bit later in the day than usual. Just been very busy with family visiting and everything, so I apologize if you maybe missed it on your morning commute or whenever you normally listen, but we got it out there for you. I want to thank Lindsay Marie Collins for producing each and every episode. I want to thank Tyler Boone for providing the music in each one as well. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. I will see you again on Friday. Head to holycitycenter.com/shop or patreon.com/holycitycenter for ways that you can support the podcast and the site. Don't forget to vote in Best of Charleston. If you want more information on these stories, check the show notes where I have links where you can get some more details. And until Friday, good night and good luck.